because you are the authority on your life and you know what's going on in your life more than anybody else. Every other person in this world is going to want to have 10 opinions about your life, your situation, your feelings, whatever it is. And they're going to try to tell you that, and they may be in agreement or disagreement with you. A lot of times they'll be in disagreement with you because they don't know, they don't understand, especially if they've never gone through something like you're going through. It's important for you to maintain your sense of reality, even in a world where people are trying to make you feel wrong, make you feel delusional, make you feel crazy. Because even if you have nothing else, you have your perspective. Hello friends, this is Josh. Welcome back to the Life Reset Collective. This is the channel where we empower, help, encourage, motivate, and support those who are going through a life reset. There are many reasons why people may be going through a life reset. It could be due to divorce, losing your job, having to change careers, losing a loved one, losing your home, having an illness diagnosis or a legal problem. I myself have been through 2 life resets, both times due to divorce, and that's why I make this channel, to help people who are going through this, because not very many people understand what you're going through when you're going through a life reset. So if you are here, welcome. I hope that you find the help, encouragement, and support you need here. And today I want to talk about being honest with yourself, being honest to the world, embracing who you really are instead of trying to please others, being a people pleaser, etc. Okay. I have come to realize that a lot of people do not honestly speak their truth to the world for a lot of reasons. A lot of times it's because of fear. We sometimes struggle to speak our truth because we're afraid. Like, speaking our truth to our boss may get us fired if they don't like it. Speaking our truth to our spouse, it may lead to them being angry at us and will cause conflict, so we don't do it, right? There's also an element of we may not trust ourselves to speak our truth. We may think a thing like, oh, I think this is happening. Like, I think my boss is doing bad choices by making this policy. I think this is a bad policy. I can tell because I work the front desk that this is a bad policy, but then you may either be afraid to discuss it, and or you may also feel like you don't trust yourself to speak this truth because you might be afraid that you're wrong. So you just kind of want to follow along and listen, right? This is very understandable, guys, especially when you are in a place in your life where things are hard, okay? When things are going really good and we seem to be making decisions that are leading to really great outcomes, we can tend to feel very confident about ourselves. But when we start making decisions, or we start having things happen in our life and things are going badly, which if you're going through a life reset, things have probably gone very badly very recently, or maybe are still going very badly, right? Sometimes people get into very hard situations when they're trying to reset their lives, when they have had a big knockdown. They've been knocked down. They've been, they've underwent some kind of great catastrophe. They have had something terrible happen to them, and now they're trying to either build back up from it, or they're still reeling from it, or it's still affecting them. This sets you up to be in a position where you're very likely to start doubting yourself, where you are very likely to start doubting that you being honest is the right decision, where you may be so desperate for some kind of support or some kind of stability that you do not want to rock the boat at all. And so you don't say, very honest things. You try to avoid conflict. You try to make the people around you happy for the moment, right? But I'm going to speak on this for a minute, okay? And there's 2 parts to this. One of these parts is about survival, and one part is about long-term health. Okay. And I don't mean health, just always physical health or emotional health or even spiritual health. I'm talking about health of life, like the healthiness of your life. Okay. So let's talk about the first part, which is survival. So first of all, I need to make you understand 2 things about this survival part. Number 1, it is incredibly important to understand that you should be thinking to yourself, I should trust myself all the time, even in the survival part. And let me tell you why. Because you are the authority on your life, and you know what's going on in your life more than anybody else. Every other person in this world is going to want to have 10 opinions about your life, your situation, your feelings, whatever it is. And they're going to try to tell you that, and they may be in agreement or disagreement with you. A lot of times they'll be in disagreement with you because they don't know, they don't understand, especially if they've never gone through something like you're going through. This is not a reason for you to doubt yourself. I want to make this very clear today. I want to make this very clear to those of you who are going through a life reset that whenever you realize you are not trusting yourself to be right about something, if you see something going on and you think that's not right, or you see something going on and you think, I don't want to be a part of that, or you see something going on and you think to yourself, I think this is going in a bad direction. I don't want to go down that road. First of all, it's really important for you to understand that you should trust yourself, because even if you have nothing else, you have your perspective. Okay. And if you don't trust yourself in these very hard situations, you're going to find that it is going to be nearly impossible for you to find solid grounding in your emotional and like psychological self. It's really important that you do find the solid grounding, because you need a platform with which to decide what's nonsense and what is actually good and helpful. This is going to be very important for you building your life back up. Okay. Now, basically what I'm saying is, if you realize that you are not trusting yourself, you should flag that in yourself, and you should really try to find a way to come back around to trusting your perspective. If you think to yourself, this policy is probably going to cause trouble at work, you should trust yourself to be right about that. Now, that doesn't always mean that you should say it or be, causing a fight about it or whatever. And this leads to the second part of this. And remember, we're talking about the survival element of being very radically honest, trusting ourselves, and telling our truth to other people. And we'll use the job analogy and the marriage analogy here. Sometimes you are in a survival situation. You may have that job not because you believe that's going to be the job for you in 20 years, but because you need money right now, because you're going through a very hard time. You need to pay your rent. You need to pay your bills, right? So when that boss says a crazy thing and tries to make a policy that doesn't make sense, it is not in your best interest, if you're in a survival situation, to start an issue with it and to speak your truth. You might say, boss, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's a crazy policy. The boss might take this personally and fire you, and then you do not have your income that you desperately need for this moment of survival in your life, right? So that's not going to help you. But it's really important to know that inside you can still trust yourself. And maybe you can find very minor, kind ways to speak your truth anyway. You might say something to your boss like, instead of saying, boss, this policy is terrible, you might find a way to say something like, in my perspective, I find that this and this and this tends to be true. What do you think about that? What about putting that into the policy? What do you think? So there are much different ways to deal with things, right? Sometimes you cannot speak your full truth when you're in survival mode, because you need the infrastructures of that semi-dysfunctional infrastructure to continue on your path and to make it happen. I often say we got to do what we got to do, right? And so you're not crazy for feeling this strange pull of feelings and situations and life circumstances, but let's get it straight. You should trust yourself. It's okay if you're not completely honest in these situations with people, if it'll cause conflict, because it's okay to sit in survival mode and to say, I just need to ride this job out for a year while I, get my, life put back together or whatever it is, right? So this can also be true in a marriage. And a lot of people don't understand this. Someone may be in a marriage and there may be crazy things happening, but you may not be trying to make an issue of it every time, maybe because you don't see this as being your long-term marriage. You might be in it right now for survival reasons. This is especially true in like abusive type situations, right? Where, a person maybe doesn't have the resources to just leap right now. And so they're in this marriage for survival, or in this relationship for survival, or cohabitating for survival. Listen, and you may run across people who will judge you for that, but this is a judgment-free zone. I'm not judging anyone for any of this, and you shouldn't judge yourself. It's really important, though, that you understand that in these difficult times, it's very important to continue to keep your truth inside of you as true and not distrust yourself because other people aren't agreeing with you. It's important for you to maintain your sense of reality, even in a world where people are trying to make you feel wrong, make you feel delusional, make you feel crazy. Please do not feed into crazy making where people try to confuse you. In fact, if it feels like people are trying to confuse you, it's probably true that this is not a good situation. All the more reason to really trust yourself, right? And we can be wrong sometimes, but if we don't trust ourselves and even give ourselves room to be wrong, then we don't have that solid trust foundation. If you really trust someone, you even trust that they might be wrong, but you trust them anyway. You don't trust people because you know they're going to be 100% right all the time. You trust them because you trust in their character and in their desire to do good. And that's what you should do with yourself. You should trust yourself because you see good character and because you have a desire to do good and you know it. You want to do what's right. Therefore, you should trust yourself with these choices, right? Now, we're talking about survival time, but let's talk about beyond survival, the long term, okay? Here's what we want to aim for in our life. And I know this is maybe hard to conceptualize right now, and there's going to be a lot of hard work to go through to get here. But let me tell you where we honestly, as humans, all should be striving to go. We as humans should be striving toward a place where not only do we trust ourselves long term, but we speak our truth in real time long term. We want to build our lives up to a point, and I know this might take time. I'm still working on this in my life. I'm to a point where I have been able to leave the survival job and strike out on my own again. So there's a certain point where I can tell, people who try to tell me how to do work, I can say, no, you're wrong and I'm not doing it. I can say this to people because I'm not at a job survival situation now, but not too long ago, there was a time when I had to hold my opinions to myself because I needed that money and that job. And so I needed to not ruffle feathers, right? So we have to do in a moment of survival. However, I did trust myself. Well, I had to relearn to trust myself. Actually, there was a big period of time there where I didn't trust myself. When I was coming out of my second divorce, I was doubting myself in all kinds of ways. And you probably are too. And so I had to relearn to trust myself again. And to be honest, I'm still doing it, guys. There are still times when I kind of second guess myself and I think, are you wrong? Are you making the wrong choice about this? Is your first instinct about this wrong? Usually your first instinct is right, but it deserves a little tempering, right? Because we want to kind of get the emotional reactions out of it. But we want to keep the pure form of information and belief and value systems that are in it, right? This is the magic formula. So now what I want to do is I want to be speaking my truth more and more, because the truth is, once I am in a place that is actually good for me, like good for me, and that means like right now, that means my own business. So this is a good example. Or relationships that are actually good for me, these kinds of things. Now I want to move more toward a place where 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what do I want this to look like? If I build those foundations on not being honest, not speaking my truth, holding back my words instead of saying them, I'm going to build a life once again built on these same kinds of foundations that led to the problems I had before. I'm going to live my life in such a way that I'm not going to communicate my truth. And then my truth will not be honored around me. And I will not have minute by minute data about how much the people around me resonate with my truth. And I might come to a place where I actually find myself once again in a bad situation that'll collapse, and then another life reset will happen. What I need to do is I need to start being as honest as I can with everyone in my life, so that I build my life on the proper, real foundations for me, where I am building a life and everyone around me knows what's going on, and they can opt in if they want, or they can say, no, I don't want to be a part of what you're saying. You're saying things I don't agree with. Okay. It's better that we get that out of the way now than build 4 years of relationship on that and have it all crumble. And then we have a life reset problem. So this is sort of a preventative thing for next time. I need to trust myself in this whole process, because if I do not trust myself in this whole process, then I won't be able to speak my truth because I won't know what it is. And thus we come to what I would consider the thesis of this video, which is I would encourage you to begin today to start trusting yourself. as much as you can. And if you do not know how to trust yourself, I would encourage you to try to think about that, talk with yourself about that, do some meditating about that, and really figure out how to make that better. Because the better you make that in your life, the better you're going to get at actually being able to build a life for the future that is actually good for you. Okay. And I realize that being outwardly honest about those truths now might not be possible because you're in survival mode. But as you exit survival mode and you begin to actually gain momentum in your life, I would encourage you to be more honest about things so that you have smaller problems in the beginning instead of big problems later on that cause another life reset. For example, you may get ahead. You may build up some savings. You may be in a new place. You may be out of survival mode and starting a new job. But at this new job, the boss is doing crazy things. I would encourage you to speak your truth now, because if you just sit and you let that build up, in 5 years, that job may collapse because one day you just realize my soul cannot do this anymore. And then you're going to find yourself maybe in another life reset situation because you've grown dependent on this job. Whereas now that it's fresh and you're in it and you are rebuilding your life and you are just being everything you need to be to rebuild your life. And then you deal with this head on a week in, maybe then you say, this job isn't for me. And you go to one of those other jobs that offered you the job and you take that job instead. And that job turns out to be very good for who you really are. Now you've really helped avoid the potential for that big blowback in your future. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for all of us. Okay. So that's the thesis for today. That's the message. I hope that this resonates with you. Drop a comment. Let me know where you are at in this journey, whether or not you agree and what's going on with you. I would love to hear what is going on with you in your life. Thank you so much for coming back to another episode of the Life Reset Collective. My name is Josh. I will see you amazing people on the next one.